This is Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY. It is sponsored by Independent Bank. Katie Huckle is off this week, and I have the pleasure of interviewing solo Rick Bartrand, who once upon a time I used to refer to as landlord. Now he's author. Rick, good morning. How are you?
I am fantastic.
You are now a published author. Did you ever see yourself being a published author? Was that a goal of yours at one time?
In the back of my head, I've never really considered myself a writer or an author, although I've been writing for probably 20 plus years. But it was more of just like getting things out of my head.
So you were writing, but you were just writing to
brain dump.
Yeah, brain dump.
Yeah,
for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So now you've got a book out, which you've been sharing some of these things with me, and I think this is a really interesting idea for a book. It's called Bite-Size Life Lessons. First of all, why now to write a book, and why this subject?
I've been telling everybody I was going to write a book for a long time, but it was, again, more of one of those things that you just kind of say, and you really don't mean. It's like on the back burner.
So at some point you felt like you had to follow through.
Yeah.
Okay.
It got to the point where it was like, I gotta start doing something, or everybody's going to think I'm a big fibber. So I actually just chained myself to my computer, and I ended up getting it done within a couple months. But how it came about was I make inspirational posts on Facebook and Instagram and that kind of thing. So I went back probably about 5 years, and I made a compilation of just about every single thing that I've ever posted on social media, plus a few other short stories that I've had on my computer, and just put it in between a cover.
Did you ever have someone come to you and say, hey, with all this stuff that you put online on social media, you should write a book? Did you have somebody come to you and say that to you, or was that all just kind of an internal thing? Internal
and a few hints here and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where does give us before we go any further, give us an example of one of your most popular or maybe better known bite-size life lessons.
There's so many. I like to break things down to their lowest denominator, so I take one subject on one side of the spectrum, and I take the same subject on the other side of the spectrum, and I try to pull it more towards the center to make it a little more understanding. Mm-hmm. Like cowardice or courageous. I point out that they're not as far apart as a lot of people think. Mm-hmm. It's most of the time both of them are standing at the same cliff, and it's all just one decision. Courageous will take a step forward, and cowardice will take a step back. But they're both standing at the same line. They're both facing the same fears. They both have their hand on the same doorknob. So they're standing side by side at first, and the only difference is just that little decision. One of your first pages here, I'm pulling it up on the computer here next to me. It says, "The Voice of Experience. A small collection of random modern-day proverbs, short snippets of useful information, inspirational daily morsels, tidbits of truth, one-line treasures, form-fitted advice from experience, things that make you go think wee bit of funnies, and some harsh realities to ponder along your journey here on planet Earth. Through the years of giving advice to those who are experiencing what I've already been through, there were some behavior patterns that came to the surface over and over again, so I started jotting those lessons down and came up with creative ways of saying the same things in different ways so everyone could easily understand no matter what their personality type was. It is my hope that there are quick lessons in here that might be helpful to those who choose to embark on the quest to self-improvement." Do you believe, Rick Bartrand, that we are a less commonsensical society than we used to be? That is a rhetorical question because I think I know the answer to what you're going to say. Yeah.
I find that I think common sense is more ignored now than just forgotten.
Okay. Ignored, willfully ignored,
Right,
and not forgotten.
right.
Okay.
Kind of pushed to the back burner.
How so?
Oh, the touchy subjects of life, politics, religion, all that stuff. I think they tend to push people farther apart instead of pull people closer together now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I think a lot of people are afraid to speak what they mean because of the polarization going on and people getting ridiculed for the way they believe now. So I think they tuck their common sense away and just hold on to it for, friends and family.
And they tuck their true feelings away.
Yeah, that too.
And isn't it better to express how you feel instead of holding that close, don't you think?
I would, I try to do that.
Yeah.
Because if the more you hold stuff in, the more problems it creates internally. Because believe it or not, there's a lot of people that don't know this, but emotional problems cause physical problems. That's an actual proven fact. So,
and social media has made it. We should be smarter than we ever were.
Yes,
but somehow we're not. And we're getting into George Carlin territory here.
Yeah. Yes.
Look up some of George Carlin's signature bits, especially in his later years in life, and you will see he got it. He understood.
Yes.
And that's what I see in this book. So tell me, you said it only took about 2 months for all of this to come together. Did you have an editor? Did you have someone kind of looking through grammar and making sure the commas were all in the right place and things were spelled right and all that stuff? How'd that work?
I had to get somebody because spelling in school was not my favorite subject. Grammar, all that stuff. I was not a very strong speller.
Okay.
After I wrote it, like I said, it took about 5 years in the making, but only a couple months to throw everything together. But once I got it together, I found a place that would print it without needing a international book number and no copyright, anything. They just printed what I sent them. So I printed off 3 or 4 copies, and then I just handed them out to people that I knew how to spell and
were strong
better
grammar,
than me. Yeah.
Right.
So I had them go through it and pencil it up and then bring it back to me, and then I made the necessary corrections and just went forward with it.
And this is 113 pages or thereabouts. And so give me an example of one that touches a lot of people, or maybe that touched you as you wrote it.
Oh boy, there's
not putting you on the spot. I know.
I've got a lot of favorites. Mostly, I guess if I could boil everything down into one big subject, it would be self-awareness. To really know that it's okay not to be right. And I find that when you're speaking to somebody, everybody feels this pressure to be right, or else they feel like there's something wrong with them if they're wrong on any subject. And
that's how good discourse begins.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, don't you think?
Well, I compare it to if there's something wrong with your car, you wouldn't hesitate to bring it in to have a mechanic fix it if you don't know how to. And it's the same thing with our mind. Sometimes, since childhood, we were raised to believe a certain way that's not really right. So we tend to think that if there's something wrong with our mind, there's something wrong with us as an individual or us personally. And it's really not. It's not that bad. And when I came to that conclusion of, you know what, I don't always have to be right, and that's okay.
Freeing.
Yeah.
It's freeing,
very,
isn't it?
Very freeing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what's been lost today in especially political discussions and discussions on Facebook. And this is the reason why I don't get into politics at all on Facebook, because I will have even my closest friends
Yes.
will jump in and say, whoa, you are wrong. Well, okay, opinions can change. Opinions can be formed. But opinions don't define the personality, you know?
Yes.
Don't you agree with that? I mean,
absolutely.
You can dislike how the person feels without disliking them. And I think that's what we've lost.
Yes.
Does this book kind of address that a little bit?
There's quite a few places in there where it addresses that subject.
I'm looking at a couple of quotes here from the early going, and some of these are really small, and then others of them are a little bit longer. And you know, there's one here that says, you know, did you know that you can still be good or even joyful, even if everything in your life is going wrong, just by separating yourself from those outside influences? That's pretty profound, because I found that people who surround themselves with negativity are going to be negative. People who surround themselves with positive people are going to be positive.
Exactly.
Don't you find that to be true?
Yes, and that goes along with the same thing of before you own a car, you don't see it anywhere. And then you buy a new car, and then all of a sudden you see it everywhere. And that's because of a little thing in the back of your mind, right at the brainstem, called the reticular activating system. And what that does is filter in or out what you are focusing on. And if you are focusing on the negative, that is pretty much everything that you're going to see in life. If you focus on what you don't have, then that's what you're going to see in life. If you focus on everything you don't like, that's what you're going to see in life. And it really is just that mind switch of focusing on the positive, the right, and the good.
So how do you convince negative people to do that? That's the reason behind this book.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the name of it, Bite-Sized Life Lessons, I try to break it down to very small, simple sayings that anyone can pretty much understand. I think the longest snippet in there is like 1 page.
Okay.
So if you're one of those kind of people that read something from front to back, that's okay. If you are the one that skips through the book to see different things here and there, you'll run across something new on every page.
It could be bathroom reading.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no matter what page you switched or flip to, there's something on it.
Yeah.
Some little snippet of information.
So tell me about some of the things that happened in your life that made you come to write this book. Some influences that brought bite-sized life lessons to life.
I went through a lot of pain and a lot of struggling. And every single time that I went through another big breakup or some big chunk of pain that I was going through, I always wondered, there's got to be something different. And what is it? And then I would ponder, okay, this guy, if his car gets hit, can go, well, that's going to take a while to fix. And then another guy can get his car hit and yell and scream and cuss and kick and carry on for days. And I wondered, where's the difference? What's the difference between this person and their reaction? Mm-hmm. And that got me curious. So I really started studying the mind and how the mind works and why we think the way we think and why we do what we do. And I uncovered a lot of deep rabbit holes, that's for sure.
Were you one person, one of those people that you referred to at one point in your life, and the other person?
Yes, I was the very angry person that reacted very negatively pretty much on all the adverse situations that presented themselves.
And at what point in your life did that start to change?
When I got so miserable that I either had to change or die, one of the two. So, I mean, it was a place of very deep desperation.
And about what age were you at when you finally came to that revelation?
It started in my early to mid 30s.
Okay.
And it's been a very long journey since then. And there were a lot of epiphanies and a lot of revelations that popped into my head that just completely almost changed my life overnight. And it happened probably about 3 or 4 times. But it was me digging and digging over and over again. And then it finally, after digging for a while, it just clicked. And then that part changed.
But you have to be willing to look inward and be introspective.
Yes.
Because a lot of people aren't.
The very first thing that you need to do is recognize that you could be wrong in any situation, and you probably are. So that's usually the first thing that goes through my head when I come up to a new situation. Am I wrong in this? And then I go over the situation and try to point out the things that I could have done better, instead of me pointing my finger at others and telling them how they can be better.
We're talking with author Rick Bartrand, first-time book writer, bite-sized love lessons. And where'd you grow up, Rick?
I was born in Grand Rapids, moved to Tustin, Michigan, and then my dad got transferred down to St. Clair, Michigan, about an hour north of Detroit. And I grew up down there until between my junior and senior year, and then we moved back up here, up north to Tustin.
So you've been a relatively close to Cadillac for most of your life.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about how the book came to be distributed publicly.
I had to do an awful lot of research. I had absolutely no clue how to publish a book. So it was an awful lot of YouTube videos and articles and...
At least you had that.
Yeah. Started digging into it and just did one little dinky thing at a time that was in my power to do. And if it was outside of my power, I would watch more videos until I learned how to do it. And then it got to where I hit publish on Amazon and threw all concern to the wind.
Did you have any doubts while you were writing this book that okay, I'm in over my head, or
yes,
you did?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, but you knew you had a message that would resonate.
Yes,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Any advice, Rick, for aspiring authors? Because there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are listening who always thought, I would like to write a book sometime. Do you have any advice?
Do it. And that's pretty much all I can say, because that's what I had to do, because I kept telling people for years, I'm going to write a book. But me saying it never made it come into fruition until I started putting feet to those words.
And plus, you had to get into your early to mid 30s and have those mental epiphanies in order to be able to have them in written form in a book too.
Yeah. There's, like I said, I've been writing for probably the past 20, 25 years. So I've got a whole computer full of stuff. I could probably write 20 more books from here on out. But this one I knew I had all together so far, that I could just, within a very short period of time, put it together and order a copy of it, so it's in my hand, that I can, smell it, touch it, taste it, and realize that it's real.
See, that's something I'd like to bring up too, because nowadays there's the Kindle, the words are there, but it's not a physical copy. Does it make a difference for you to actually have that physical copy in your hand as opposed to a digitized version that somebody can read on a computer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I had after I wrote it, I saved it in a PDF format, the cover and everything, And I was reading it, but it wasn't until actually when I uploaded it to a printer and they sent it back to me when I had an actual copy in my hand, it was like, okay, this is real.
All these years.
Yeah, it's finally here
in my hand.
Yeah.
So how are people finding out about this book? How is it being marketed? How do folks outside of the Cadillac area know about bite-sized life lessons?
Just my limited skills in graphic design and posting it on my social media platforms. I've actually got a book signing that I'm doing at Horizon Books downtown Cadillac on June 18th from 1 to 3.
Okay.
So I've been trying to get that out there. Word of mouth, I started writing on another platform called Medium, which is sort of like a social media platform for writers.
Mm-hmm.
So any chance I get, I'm trying to get the name out there and get the word out also. So.
How about feedback from those who do this professionally? Have you gotten any feedback, any thoughts so far yet, or no?
The only thing that I've talked to about with the professionals is them trying to get me to publish through them. But it's a little bit of a stretch in the financial area, so I had to do it myself first. But I haven't really gotten any feedback from professionals, so to speak. But the feedback that I have gotten from people that have read it already has been it's pretty exciting. I've gotten some positive reviews.
Obviously, you have your whole life to write your first book. It's like they say this about musicians. You have your whole life to do your first album, and then you have a year or two to do your second. And so inevitably there might be some sort of a drop-off in quality. But if you have a second book, what is the topic going to be? Is it going to be generally this area again, or do you have another vision that you'd like to jump into?
I have a few different visions.
Okay.
I've got about 3 different pathways I want to go down.
And those do you care to reveal?
I will reveal.
Okay.
Create some curiosity.
Okay.
I also, inside of that journey to self-improvement, dealt with politics and religion seem to be 2 of the biggest controversial areas in your life and the biggest decisions. Religion probably taken the lead. There was a time in my life where I went through the questions. Okay, is there a God? Is there, or is there not? And when I was in the military, I got to the point to where it was like, okay, I started dabbling in atheism, even though I was raised in a church. And that was another journey I went down, is the fight between worldviews and belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a lot of uncovering in that area too. So that one's about atheism. And also on the other side of the spectrum, and that would be Christianity. And that also is a very close side by side. The belief systems aren't really, a lot of people are probably going to think I'm blasphemous for saying this, but religious people and atheists aren't very far apart from the way they think as far as confusion. I like to search for what I call the sweet spot, and that is to take the farthest end of the spectrum in each category, like religion. Not every religion can be right, because obviously there's a lot of opposites in a lot of religions. And in atheism, there's dabblers and there's hardcore. So, there's a tremendous amount of spectrums out there. So I try to take both ends of the spectrum and see how close I can get them to meet in the middle. And the big one that I want to write is all about truth. Really digging down to the truth of why we're all here and what our purpose is.
I don't know if it was you who wrote this on your Facebook page, but somebody did very recently when they and it was a reference to your truth. There is no such thing as your truth. There is just truth.
Yes, I made a.
Did you? Was that your post?
Yeah,
and that's true.
I said there's not your truth. Your favorite color could be blue, which is an opinion. Mm-hmm. It's not your truth. It may be true for you, but that's not an actual truth, because truth at its core never changes. Mm-hmm. That's true for everybody.
Right.
So it's more of your opinion and not your truth. So yes, that's.
So if you were to write, if you were to sit down and say, okay, it's time for Rick Bartrand to write another book, what of those topics would be next? Which one do you think you'd be able to just, the words would flow from you like a river?
I already have the atheist one, probably 4 chapters in, mm-hmm. and I have the content for the rest of it. I just have to organize it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I think that one will probably raise to the surface a little bit faster than the rest of them.
So there's going to be more work from Rick Bartrand coming out here sometime.
Quite a bit.
At some point.
Yeah, I've got a lot of titles in my head.
So this, in a way, getting this book out and getting it down and having a physical copy is feeding your need to write some more.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll have to look for that. When is that signing that you just mentioned at Horizon Books?
It is June 18th from 1 to 3.
Okay. So if you want to have some, either you read it cover to cover or just little dribs and drabs to have in your bathroom, if you will, it's all there for you. It's good stuff, Rick, and I think we live in a world right now that needs a little more common sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah. All right. Rick Bartrand, he is a local author and maybe going to be an international author at some point. Who knows?
Well, let's hope so.
Started right here in Cadillac. The author of Bite-Sized Life Lessons. Go out and where can folks get it now? It's available on Amazon?
Available on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, pretty much anywhere books are sold.
The usual places, and including they have them at Horizon, I imagine, on the shelf, or will?
Yes, there's a couple copies there right now.
Okay, awesome.
And I will be bringing a box full of them. So
okay. Awesome. Rick Bartrand, our guest today on Cadillac Unscripted, the author of Bite-Sized Life Lessons. Go look it up on Amazon. You will not regret it. Rick, thanks for your time this morning.
You're very welcome, Rich.
It's Cadillac Unscripted, sponsored by Independent Bank on 107.9 CDY.